Obviously, this question is testing punctuation. I noticed some interesting punctuation marks like the semicolon and the colon here. So let's take a look. Let's see what's going on in the sentence. A standard Argo float, a type of autonomous robot, measures temperature and salinity in the upper regions of ice-free oceans. Oh, I don't need that sentence. More advanced floats can measure a wider range of variables, travel to greater depths, and monitor seasonal ice zones. Seems like a list to me, just a list of 3 things. So I know why some people would pick a colon here is they associate colons with lists. That's not how they work in most cases, and it's not how it's working here. Because what the colon would imply here is that we kind of ended the sentence with the word variables. So more advanced floats can measure a wider range of variables, period. Then whatever would be after that colon would basically just be like a list or explanation of which variables it can measure. But that's not what this is. Traveling to greater depths is not a variable, right? That's not something that's measured. You're traveling, you're not measuring anything. So this is just a poor use of the colon. It's setting up examples that don't exist as relating to that first piece. They're not the examples of the variables. B is just adding commas where you'd expect, right? There's 3 pieces of the list. Measure a wider range of variables, travel to greater depths, and monitor seasonal ice zones. So I think a list of 3 would probably get the commas. Let's just make sure. Well, C just gets rid of it, so then things get blended together, and that's weird. And then D is adding in the semicolon, which it does occasionally appear in lists. So it's the most important rule for semicolons is that we need a sentence before and a sentence after the semicolon, so it functions like a period. In this case, that fails. But that's not why I would eliminate it. We can also have this secondary use of a semicolon where we do use it for lists. I talk about this in another video. Just subscribe to my channel, look at my things, search semicolon, it'll come up. But basically, yeah, we can use semicolons to separate items in a list when the list is kind of long and complicated, but we would need to do that consistently. So we have a semicolon as like the piece at the end, but the part at the beginning is a comma. So that inconsistency doesn't really work here. So it's just more complicated than it needs to be. B is a very simple way of just punctuating a list. It's the same way you would do it probably in your own writing. I think the only reason we would get confused here is that they've offered you these other options that have advanced punctuation marks. So you get a little flustered and you pick something just because you're scared. Don't do that. Know the rules and you won't be scared.